cut it down and get rid of the memory?
Maybe.
Because I would, I constantly look at
It's a
it.
beautiful tree.
Like
Even
almost-
better now with all the
Wait till I see it.
branches, two big branches and that
That's
dead
cool.
one I cut out.
No, I just posted it.
Oh, I
That's a reminder though.
I think I need to hire somebody in the future.
The Mrs. already said that. She already assured me that that's what was gonna happen, all right, sir?
She's got it taken care of.
Yeah, she's gonna. I know a guy, actually, I know a gal. It's gonna take care of that for you.
Chairman, we are recording and live streaming when you are ready.
Okay. It is 11 o'clock. We'll call to order the Isabella County Board of Commissioners Finance and Administration Committee meeting. We have approval of the agenda. Are there any desired changes to the posted agenda? All right. Then we'll move on to our first item, which is consider approving prime contract change. Oh. We'll do a call to the public.
Anybody online?
There is
Anybody
no one
online?
online at this time, Mr. Chairman.
Now we'll move on to the item number 4, which is consider approving prime contract change order number 23 with Clark Construction in the net additional amount of $4,967 and authorize the board chairperson to sign the same. Do we have Heidi? We do have Heidi. with
There
us.
she is.
Hi, good morning. Thank you.
Good
I'm
morning.
glad I finished our meeting quickly and able to jump on real quick. So, in front of you, you have change order PCECO number 23. Just a little bit of information on you regarding buyout. We have $50,141 remaining in buyout. With our buyout and our contingency, we have a total of $831,915 available. And we are about 80% complete with construction at this point. Kind of going through the change order a little bit. So we have the first item here was PCO number 102. This is for the booking area. So we had to change the masonry walls to add some privacy between each of the windows. So if there's anybody that comes in, they're not standing next to each other or they're causing a fight or, confidential information is not shared. That was a request of the sheriff there to make sure that they did have that. So they changed the masonry walls for an add to Strauss Masonry of $6,394. Kanowinski did have to change out the window frames in that area, and that's a cost of $18,775. We've been working through the glass changes we needed to do there. We found a less expensive option, and we're working through that to get that taken care of. So that'll be a future change order. We went through a few different types of items there. So the total of that change order then was that's not right. $25,169. Moving then down to PCO number 106. This one here, so we had a scope gap, and that was for when we were bidding out the project with our roofing contractor. Typically, the electrical contractor holds the lightning protection requirements that is needed for the building. That's a design build type of system. So we did not have a drawing to kind of give us like locations and how many different penetration they would need on the roof. With those kind of penetrations and stuff, you do need to have like a special kind of pad to put underneath those so it doesn't damage the roof and cause any problems. Because we didn't have that, we didn't have an allowance figured for that type of situation. We had a scope gap. And luckily, we did have some allowance items left in that roofing contractor scope. So the end up being total then $8,208. Originally, I believe I have the cost in front of me, it was about $12,000. So unfortunately, a bit lesson learned here for us. Moving forward, we'll make sure that we do have an allowance built in our roofing contractor scope in order to make sure that we do have this covered.
Hey Heidi,
Yes.
issue is, again, we get back to not on the drawings.
Well, so what it is, it's a unique situation here. It is a design build. So when the electrical contractor hires the lightning protection to come out, he's got a scope to go through. And with that scope, we get shop drawings after we buy out the project. So hindsight, we probably should have had an allowance figured for something like this. But also, I've done a lot of re-roofs over at CMU, and I've never seen this much lightning protection. So I don't know if a code changed somewhere recently. We're added a lot of additional lightning protection. So that's kind of a lessons learned too. We've kind of, Jeff and I kind of talked about of something that we need in the future to kind of make sure that we're checking the scope on that for that spec and what we need, and make sure we do have an allowance covered in the roofing contractor. So that way we're covered in the future.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
So, I mean, it was there. It's a design build contract, which makes it a little different here because they're going to design how to do that in the field. No different than like a fire alarm contractor or the fire suppression. Those are all design build as well.
Okay.
So that total price was $8,208. Moving down then to PCO number 128. We needed to add some privacy walls in the dorm area. Right now they're kind of just gang toilets. We have a divider in between, but we needed also a privacy wall. So anyone that's in the bunk beds can't just kind of look over into that area when the people are using the toilets. So that was to add those in for Strauss Masonry was $5,040. And then Murray Painting to come in and paint those was $865 for a total of $5,905. Next item is PCO number 134. This was an item, the makeup air unit 2 grills out in area C. They were not identified on the drawings. So we needed to get those ordered, and that was an add to the project of $5,811. And that's all these items are coming from buyout too, just to let you know. The next item on the list is PCO number 141. This is actually deducting the remaining allowance that we had in our steel contractors scope of the credit back to the project of $7,574. And then the next item on the list is PCO number 144. They're at the security ceiling systems. The details did not show any blocking requirements needed. So that was something that was not on the drawings. That was an add of $520. And that also came from buyout. Moving to the second page on our list here, PCO number 152. This was the lineup side window. Currently, the way it was designed, had metal panels on the top of the window. There was kind of a divider in the middle. And so Sheriff kind of limited the visibility for looking at the people on the lineup. So Sheriff requested that we change that out to add glass on the top 3 panels. Changing that glass then was $6,795, and that also came from buyout. Next item on the list is PCO number 156. This is a field issue. So we did have out in the pod area, we had that large opening where we had the pods come in and out. I know quite a few of you have seen that when we were building. We also kept it open for the mason to come in and bring his materials in and out. We did have some metal panels that were on the building, and I don't know if our temp protection during windstorm or something like that, some of it came loose. It damaged a couple metal panels. No one caught it. It wasn't until our metal panel contractor came back on site and noticed that we had a couple damaged panels. Luckily, he had 2 panels in his shop, so they didn't cost us anything. It was just mostly just for labor to change those out. And that was a cost of $1,770. Next time on our list is 157. This is a back charge between contractors. Strauss had come back in and re-rub the walls, which had already been painted. And so we had our painting contractor come in and touch all those up. So that's a back charge to Strauss. Then, and so it's no cost to the project. The next item is PCO number 161. On the drawings, they didn't provide us a height to mount the infrared heater in the exercise room of the pod area in the jail. And also the water line for the rooftop water hydrant. These were identified during BIM, and no one caught that there was going to be an issue. So to move those lines per the request of the PBA and IA, it's $2,363. And that came from Bio. And then the last item on the list here, this also is a back charge. We had to rework some of fire suppression line. And so there was a light in the way, so we had to move the fire suppression line. So that was no charge to the project. So total PCCO number 23 then is 45,000. Oh, shoot, I think that's I have it right here. $48,967. Is there any questions?
Are there any questions?
None for me. Good.
Work continues and you're doing a great job with Clark Construction getting this project done in a timely manner. I know you've had some challenges and you're working through them, and we do appreciate that. Would you like to make a motion to move this to the work session?
Sure can. Again, thank you, Heidi.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
You too. Move to take consideration for approving prime contract change order number 23 with Clark Construction in the net additional amount of $48,967. Authorize the board chairperson to sign the same to our work session this coming Tuesday evening.
I will support that motion. It's moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. It moves forward. Next item is consider adopting resolution 2024-13 to approve the ballot language for Isabella County Sheriff's Office Road Patrol Services millage proposal and certifying ballot language on the November 5th, 2024 primary election ballot. So there's been meetings. In fact, Madam Administrator, you've been behind the scenes working with the sheriff and others to and with the finance committee to come up with a millage amount. I know our concern was we certainly want to have enough to support that service, but we're also concerned about not asking for too much that would cause a rejection and total loss of the service. So I think we came to a good compromise. I don't know if there's anything you want to add to this.
I think it shows that we've done a lot of cutting at the county. It shows that we've been diligent with our zero base. I know 2.5 mills was on the table before, and this is a full mill and a little more, less than that. This follows through with what the board says that they wanted to do and come with, supporting the deputies in the first quarter of fiscal 25 and coming back with a question for the voters specific to road deputies, not with anything extra in the mix. And certainly we can talk about details of what's included in funding in this and what isn't, right? It's not just bodies because we associate patrol cars with deputies, right? So there's automobiles and gas, tire and oil and that type of thing built into the 1.452 as well. All expenses, all benefits, all wages associated with the road deputy personnel is included.
And I know as we work through this process, there's compromises that everybody's made. I mean, do we just include the road patrol? Do we include other departments that are also part of public safety? We have commissioners that had different ideas on what that millage rate should be set at. So there's been a lot of give and take. And I think we came up with a good proposal to move before the voters in November. Is this something we need to read?
I don't think it would hurt. I think everyone listening would probably love to see what you're looking at, especially, the amount of mills, the duration, and of course, the dollar amount that it would generate.
Do we have a volunteer or should the chairman read it?
I'll read it if you like.
Please do.
So resolution number 2024-13, whereas Isabella County Sheriff's Office Road Patrol services are of substantial benefit to the citizens of Isabella County, and whereas additional millage is necessary to maintain the Isabella County Sheriff's Office Road Patrol services, and whereas the Board of Commissioners of Isabella County deems it necessary and expedient for the county to maintain the Sheriff's Office Road Patrol operations, including ancillary items needed to perform road patrol services, such as vehicles, equipment, communications, and notifications. And whereas a levy of 1.45 mils would be required in order to provide Sheriff's Office Road Patrol services. And whereas the Board of Commissioners of Isabella County has determined that it is appropriate to submit a special millage proposition to the electors of the county at the general election to be held on Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the following question be submitted to a vote of the electorate of Isabella County at the general election to be held Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. Isabella County Sheriff's Office Road Patrol proposal for the sole purpose of providing Isabella County Sheriff's Office Road Patrol operations, equipment, communications, and notifications shall the constitutional limitation on general ad valorem taxes, which may be assessed in any 1 year upon all property within Isabella County, Michigan, be increased by up to 1.45 mils, $1.45 per $1,000 of taxable value for a period of 6 years from 2024 through 2029 inclusive. If approved and levied in full, this millage will raise an estimated $3,737,196 for the Isabella County Sheriff's Office Road Patrol operations, equipment, communications, and notifications in the first calendar year of the levy. In accordance with state law, a small portion of the millage may also be dispersed to the downtown development authorities of the city of Mount Pleasant and Union Township, the tax increment finance authority of the city of Mount Pleasant, and the Brownfield redevelopment authority of the city of Mount Pleasant. Be it further resolved that this question is hereby certified to the county clerk. Be it further resolved that the county clerk is hereby directed to cause the proposed millage to be stated on the Tuesday, November 5th, 2024 election ballot, and to be prepared and distributed in the manner required by law.
Thank you. I will move consideration of adopting resolution 2024-13 to approve the ballot language for the Isabella County Sheriff's Office Road Patrol Services Village proposal and certifying ballot language on the November 5th, 2024 primary election ballot to the work session.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Is there further discussion?
This has been a long process and a lot has gone into it, and we've got a workable solution. It's clean, simple, for the sole purpose of providing Isabella County Sheriff's Office Road Patrol operations. So it's a real simple and clean proposal.
I know the county board's taken a lot of heat. Maybe some of it's warranted, but I think a lot of it is unwarranted. You know, I know that Montcalm County, under the same financial stress a few years back, saw the road patrol millage to balance their budget. It got turned down, and I think it took them a couple of years before citizens finally did approve it. And I think Montcalm County is still trying to recover from that loss. Gladwin County, 2 or 3 years ago, saw the road patrol millage, again, because the county's financials were under stress. It got turned down, approved the next year. I don't know what the impacts were to Gladwin County. And I was under the impression that Eaton County was seeking a road patrol millage. I found out it is not. It is seeking a general increase in the general operating fund of 3 mills. Good luck with that. But one of the major drivers of that 3 mills, again, is road patrol services. And Gratiot County has a millage for road patrol, so we're not an unusual county. Government is under the same financial stress that many families are living under. It's just a very tough time. So even though we need to seek this millage, it's a very important service to the residents of the county, and we're taking a positive step forward to offer this option to county residents in November. Any further discussion?
Again, thank you, Sheriff, for working with us, coming and meeting with us and trying to work this to where minimizing the financial impact to our citizens while still providing an essential service that we all very desperately need. So thank you for working with us, sir.
With that, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. It moves forward. Our next item, update regarding contracted equalization services. Mr. Pete Preston, Equalization Manager with Preston Community Services LLC, is with us online. So please do update us.
Good morning, everyone. Looks like I'm a little out of sorts, didn't get to a mirror, pardon me. So I guess I do have an update here, so I'm going to run through it, and I kind of broke it down different sections here. So please feel free to interrupt me or wait till I'm done here, and we can kind of go through from what you may have heard going on. So tax billing was, in my opinion, was an overall success. The training went well. It was well attended. We did have some that were unable to make it. And so a lot of effort was put into assisting those folks. Special thanks to Judy Niznak for going out after the fact and working with people at their kitchen tables or their township offices and helping these folks through post-county employment. Sarah and Mary that work directly with me also participated and handled phone calls. So overall, we were good. Were there bumps? Yes. Those units that were using the cloud version of BSNA did have some struggle. That was more of a software issue and a conversion issue on BSNA, but of course it needed some of our input on it. Those units that ended up using their assessors database instead of the proven equalization database for names and addresses did have some struggle there. They had a higher rate of return mail than others. Some of the treasurers are working with our office to do database compares to ferret some of those out and get those corrections done. This happens every tax billing. When you get a return, we share information to make sure we both are on the same page, the local unit and the county. But some of them did experience a higher rate of return. We're trying to help with rectifying that. We are working on also invoicing the local units for this summer billing. Again, we offered to be a repository to keep local unit costs down because if you do it en masse, you get a lower postage rate as well as a lower print rate. So us being the repository, we paid for the cost of KCI and the postage up front. Now we need to get reimbursed. We've also found that we may need to do a little bit of back invoices to recoup some prior year costs. So we're going to be working on that too. Communication. We're on our third version of our contact sheet going out to the local units for feedback. This is a who to call by topic area. And so it gives an email address and a phone number. And then of course, I have some responsibilities down there, but also I'm the stop if they're not getting responded to on a particular issue. We've set up our Verizon call in for our office number to go to those individuals directly. So it cuts out any middle people. Kelsey has been maintaining physical office hours at the county pretty much one day a week. Before we publish that, though, we need to make sure we have backup in case Kelsey needs to have personal hours or such. So we're still working on that and hope to publish on the website not only the contact sheet, but when we will have available hours if someone needs to meet with us in person. I feel we've been responding well, but always open to feedback, and you folks are a lot closer sometimes to the local level than I am, so I'd be interested if there's any concerns still out there, or pull me aside later and we can talk about particular individuals if there's some concern. The third item, essential functions, deed entry. We worked with Karen and Register of Deeds and found a solution to our paper issue and distribution of deeds to the local units. So in the past, Register of Deeds would print out a copy of the deed for equalization, and they print out a copy of the deed for the local unit. Equalization would enter in ours, and we'd scan them and used to print them and send to the assessor, but we started scanning them and emailing them. We're cutting through all that. Our staff will have access to the Register of Deeds online. We will pull down then a digital deed. We will process that deed as usual. Once we process that deed in our system, we will then stick it in a folder for a digital file, and then we will send to the local unit assessor. Here's your deed. We'll also send a report of here's what we did in your particular unit, so they will have a chance to compare. If they believe something else is going on in the deed that we're not aware of, say they got a property transfer affidavit and was a family sale, and we weren't aware of that, then that gives us that line of communication there. One of the things, and we may be looking at this at a future Board of Commissioner meeting, maybe even the next available one, is that, pardon me, is that we would need to do an intergovernmental agreement with the local unit because Register of Deeds is the primary distributor of deeds. So we don't want to send something to a local unit assessor and then they would send it out without it being paid for in some form or fashion, essentially bypassing Register of Deeds. So we do have that from Tim Perrone, your legal counsel, and hope to get that again on a Board of Commissioners meeting in the near future. Let's see. Also, something we discovered is that with our online access to Register of Deeds has an indexing issue, which many counties do when it comes to recorded plats. This will give us an opportunity now when we're on there and pulling something, we see there's no local unit assigned to it. We can assist Register of Deeds and the vendor in coding these and getting those indexed appropriately for, say, title companies doing a search by local unit instead of having to dig too far into the plat. So that's going to be a benefit we didn't expect in this digital process. The fourth or the third item for essential functions, the studies. Equalization studies, all property owners have been, their parcels have been selected for study, have been notified. Our database is prepped and we're hitting the field in August. We'll have approximately 400 properties that will require boots on the ground. These will be properties that are improved, and so we'll have people out in the field measuring these or double checking if they've been selected in the past. And then the other ones will be vacant land and such. We'll do by aerial and do our studies and all the sales that have happened in the county for industrial, commercial, and agricultural. This year we have a little bit of anomaly because sales are down, and some of our more rural communities, usually residential has enough sales that we have a sample that we can just take the average of the sales and say, okay, it's at 46% of what your assessed value is. So therefore you need to raise it approximately 8% to get to 50% of true cash value. This year, Fremont and Vernon did not have enough sales. So that puts approximately another 70 properties that will actually have boots on the ground that we'll have to go out and do field appraisals on. So it's been a while since we've seen sales slow down that much in the residential class. And of course, that's on the national level, that was the intent with the mortgage rates and stuff, was to slow down that kind of growth. Fourth, what I call reports. We're meeting with IT on Thursday to get access to all corners of our network. We've had some information gaps on some past products that been produced from our office. So we think that this may be in prior employee only portion of the server. So we're going to work on that to make sure we can find those and keep up on our reporting. The biggest reporting we have, of course, will be the 4029s. We're waiting for the primary to go through. We'll be preparing the county's 4029. And we'll be, again, just assisting with the local units to make sure they have all the 4029s, a good double check on what they need, because that needs to be done by September 30th for the winter tax billing. September 30th, unless there's any changes at the November ballot box. So that's what I have right now.
Thank you. Questions or comments for Pete?
Just have one. Mr. Preston, the direct phone line contact list that you said you're providing, you're gonna provide that to the county, correct?
Yes, absolutely. We're trying to get through sending it out to the local units and such, and making sure we're counting for all that would be calling in. And then we'll want to put that on the website.
And I want to make sure that all the county commissioners have that contact
Oh,
as well. Because again, my biggest concern that has been expressed to me is, again, the communication,
Mhm.
being able to get answers quickly as possible. So again, if we have that in that list, and we can assist in that process of better communication. So
Absolutely.
thank you.
So I make the rounds to my 3 townships too, and I did bring up to each and every one of them a little discussion about the privatization of our equalization function. And I didn't hear any negative feedback on the billing cycle. You know, I thought the impression I had is that things seem to be going well. And I did state, if you're having any kind of problems making communications, contact me and I'll see what I can do to expedite that. I have not received one contact, so I think that's pretty positive. So I think we did the right thing in moving to privatizing the service, and it's a tough time anytime you make changes, and this did seem like a major change, but it seems like it's progressing very well. And thank you.
No, thank you, folks. And I do appreciate the support of the board. You know, I've talked with a couple of folks that have talked with their commissioner about things, and we're encouraged to call us directly or to get through Kelsey through our main number and get feedback. So, you know, that's what we need is just the support, because it's been a little bumpy here and there. And but you know, some of the folks have been really dig their heels in and interested in learning something new, and that's what we're discovering more about the tax billing. Do we have some folks that still don't want to do digital deeds? Well, absolutely. Change is tough sometimes.
Well, I know in at least a couple of my townships, maybe all 3, there's going to be quite a change on the township boards and clerks and treasurers. So we're going to be getting new people in, and they're probably going to be needing help down the line. So I thank you.
Thank you.
Questions or comments?
No, sir.
Thank you, Pete. Very
Thank you for the
valuable.
update, Pete.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pete.
Thank you. Take care, folks.
Our next is number 7, discussion regarding the wage study and policies for implementation and ongoing success.
Yeah, so it's time to talk about wage study, and in this venue, we've kind of been, you know, telling everyone there's a wage study in process. It's in process. You know, please wait on bringing forward your requests for reclassification. Even in the budget document, we saw very few requests for reclassification, and that's because, you know, our messaging has been to wait, and the department heads will tell you, you know, we've told them to wait for the wage study. You know, we've received a couple of draft documents from Amy Sell, and Amy Sell continues to work with us on a final document. There's a lot of things that were worked through with the departments that I think that have come to resolution with them. As we say, not everyone's happy with the outcome of a wage study ever, right? But we need to be okay with the process. We need to understand it. Otherwise, if we don't understand it or we don't agree with it, I think it's always going to be unsuccessful, right? There's always going to be an underlying question about it. So some of the things that I think that the employees deserve is to know, policy wise, how we're going to address the wage study document once we have a final product. And we're close. I know you've now all seen all of the documents we've received from Amy Sell. We were recently FOIA'd for that information and released that. And I wanted to make sure that all the commissioners had, everything that's out there in the universe. So as you can see from those documents, we are close with a final. I think some of the things that we need to talk about policy wise going forward, because right now there is nothing, as you know, built into the zero base for any type of implementation. So what have we been making the employees wait for, and what can they expect now? I think that one of the big things being talked about is general fund versus outside funds. Right? And we're doing our zero base budget with general fund. We're controlling expenses there to where we can balance our budget. If an outside fund is balanced and can afford it, should they be able to implement the wage study if general fund employees? We can't do that for general fund. That's something we have to talk about and work through. Another thing is how are we going to roll it out? In the last wage study presentation was brought to you with, there was, I think on the very last slide, you could implement it 100%, 75, 50, 20, and here's the options. You don't have to go fully implemented, right? Like we did last time. You could decide to do a certain percent for all. You could decide to do, we've talked about those most underpaid, right? And identifying those positions, which the study will do for us, and maybe looking at those positions first. Again, I think you've got that general fund, outside fund conversation to get through, and then how to address it from there. We don't have the money to implement it full. I think everybody understands that. But I think they need to understand a lot. I think a lot of people are now in a position where they're here and they're holding on to their career at the county because there's a hope now in a wage study that they maybe get raised up. And I think there's opportunities elsewhere for a lot of our employees where they can get raised up immediately. So I do think we owe it to them to at least let them know going forward, what's our philosophy with the wage study. I'm gonna stop talking.
Somebody want to open up the can of worms? Start the discussion. I'll just say, like you indicated, we were hoping to have enough contingency to address some of it. But that contingency is not only for the wage study, we're looking at COLA, which hasn't been budgeted, put into the zero base yet, or we don't know what's happening with our health insurance yet. I think we budgeted 10%, and we're looking at 14%, or is it greater than 14%?
21% was what we were looking at originally, but more on that in the next discussion item. But we've done some hard work to get that down.
Insurance committees were very hard.
Regardless of we go, I think we're gonna have to phase this in over time, but we do have some very, we're gonna have employees that are paid far less than they should be getting. And some of those are not that, I'm trying to say some employees are more important than others, but in fact, some positions probably are very critical to the continued operation of the county. And even if we have people move on, are we going to be able to support hiring somebody new for the wage that we're paying now? We've got a lot of challenges on doing this, but we have to come up with a plan. I'm kind of thinking that if you're a general fund as one that has its own millage, or is a enterprise fund that has a surplus, maybe there is some justification there to make those adjustments so that we don't have a stress in one area of the county that we don't need to deal with. But those are my early thoughts.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. I think maybe a phased implementation where we identify those positions that are most under what the wage study is telling us.
Most egregious on a percentage
The
basis.
most egregious, yes, thank you. And maybe try to start rectifying those first, I think would be a good place to start.
Regardless of fund.
See,
I think we have to look at some of the general fund positions too, because
using people.
we're gonna have we're gonna be losing people.
And did you play that forward? If somebody does leave because of a better opportunity, again, we put out try to fill a position, we're gonna be hiring them.
Probably the wage.
We may have to start with where the wage study indicates.
That's
So again, we're gonna catch 22. Keep someone that has experience and knowledge, try to. Or do we go out and find somebody with less experience and have to pay them more? That's a potential.
We've got to balance that with budgetary constraints. We've
That's-
got to be able to pay for it.
That's right. So the key thing is finding the money, to me. I want to do this the first possible way to get this straightened out for everybody as quickly as possible, but it's finding the money. We worked so hard to get to a balanced budget, and we still have a little bit of contingency, but where can we find more? I just feel like there's got to be more somewhere that we can apply to this wage study. Just don't know where yet.
I don't know, I think we squeezed the expense side of the budget pretty down to the point that we're not even covering all the costs that we probably should be covering right now. But maybe there's some hope in the solar, some revenues coming in, and I think if we get some new revenues, I feel maybe the priority use would be implementation of the wage study. And I know solar revenues are gonna drop off over time, but hopefully by that time, we have other dribbles of revenue coming into, fill in the blanks, but I just read an internet story on a study. It said that over the next 5 years, about a quarter of the current employees are expected to leave the workforce. So it's not going to get any easier as we move forward. Yeah, I don't know who does the studies or how accurate they are, but that's the reality we're looking at.
I think at a minimum, we need to, again, like you mentioned, we need to prioritize any additional revenue to the wage study. At least make that known to the employees that we are going to prioritize. At least for me, I really feel like, as you said, we squeezed and squeezed and squeezed, but any additional revenues that we can bring in any way, shape, or form should be applied to the wage study. At least make that statement for now until we can find that money.
We did get a little positive information in the MERS actuarial. MERS had a good year, and that that doesn't change our payments to MERS in fiscal 25, but it will going forward. So that
We'll reduce
it'll reduce that just a little bit.
and if they continue to have good years, then we could continue to hope to bring that down even more.
But I think it's an interesting concept that you talk about, because I think it would go a long way with employees to commit the dollars. The board has the ability to take that action at a board meeting, right? To commit a certain amount of fund balance towards that. Understand that's an ongoing cost, so yeah, once you can, like, you'd only commit it for a 1-year expense, but that's ongoing then. So it's more of if you have new revenues, like Commissioner Joseph's talking about,
That's what I'm talking about.
something ongoing, like the 12% of ongoing solar revenues. Mhm. That's a great concept.
At least at a minimum.
I know we've had philosophically, I've come to the commissioners, because we've had some individuals in those situations that we're talking about, right? That have other opportunities that may leave us, and can we do something? And loud and clear, I can say the philosophy thus far is that we're not handpicking out positions to address. Unless we make this decision of, yes, it can be all funds, or it's gonna be 100%, or it's gonna be most underpaid, you know, whatever that directive is, then we can start looking at what the numbers are in the final document, right, and address those. And maybe that is one of the other underpaid individuals, right, that has come forward, maybe it'll work out that way, but we're going by board philosophy on those things we talked about. Now, one thing we haven't talked about that I have discussed with some of the department heads is the difference between union and non-union and how that plays into this and inflammation. And you, I know you're smiling because you know exactly what I'm talking about. You could implement this wage study as is, and the very next union negotiation's gonna.
Right, we have less
Level it up.
control over that side of it. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So, just a thought there about the caveat of when those union negotiations take place, we do our own little market analysis with legal during those negotiations, and then, that will probably be different than the wage study. Right? So right out of the gate, even if we implemented it full, we'd be off kilter before too long. Just one of the things that we talked about that I wanted to make sure was discussed here.
I like Commissioner Embry's comment about if we do find additional revenue, that this should be the top priority. And that makes sense to me. I can't think of anything else that would be a higher priority than this. Keeping our people here.
The one thing though, that we kind of brought up is, those non-general fund, functions of the county that we have resources to put into it. Once we get the wage study done, I have no problem with the priority of looking at those. I know there may be some employees that are gonna feel, you know, that we're favoring one segment of the employees, but it's not. It's favoring where we have the funds to take some pressure off of the decision that we're having to make now.
And maybe it's a way to keep employees in our county versus, you know, maybe it's a different department. Maybe, you know, maybe they go to those outside funds and that creates
That's what I'm concerned
that
about.
transition, but at least we would keep them in the county.
Right. Then what we run into again is a devil's advocate is people moving to the enterprise funds away from general fund, and then there's no employees within general fund. And then how do we replace them and at what cost? We want to open that can,
Well, I think the cost, you know, we've already talked, you gotta have the money.
right?
So I think if you are giving the directive of new revenues committed towards that, we've got our zero base, so we know what new revenues look like. So we can quantify that each year. But again, that's an ongoing expense that you're committing that monies to, so we just have to make sure.
I think we need to clarify that it's additional legacy increases. This can't be something like you said, a one and done. This has to be revenues that are going to remain at a certain level, perpetuate over the course of time as a legacy increase. So that'd be my only caveat there. Again, and it's not that I don't want to lose people, but again, we have to look at the big picture. If we open a can of worms that could potentially deplete the staffing for general fund departments as they all leave to the enterprise funds, well, that could cause animosity as well amongst departments. So either we stay, in my opinion, either we stay objective and stay consistent. We start getting off that philosophy. Again, we move into the area of subjectivity and who's making those decisions as to how much money someone's going to get paid and what positions are going to get paid, how much. Are we going to take that away from the Board of Commissioners or put that in the standalone funds department head's responsibility? They get to pick and choose as to who gets raises within their departments? How does that work? Do they have that? Do we give them that authority?
I'm not arguing for or against that, but they do have control and responsibility for their own budgets.
Correct. They should.
What do you need from us to help the conversation or?
Completed study.
Mhm.
I don't know how long we're looking at in terms of the schedule to get it to a point that we're ready to.
So what's the process there? What's holding up, having a completed study?
I just think there was a lot of angst among departments, and so we didn't want a study being released that wasn't supported. So we've held some meetings with departments to find out what the issues are. We've given that feedback to Amy Sell, and they've been working back and forth on. Just this morning, I saw they got back. Thank you, Director Shoemaker, for a very nice email to them. I don't know that that'll necessarily hold up the final document, but just valid questions about process and.
You want to mention that we kind of talked about a tentative process, once the final wage study comes out, where the department heads could come to the board if they felt that the process that Amy Sell used. Did you want to talk about that?
Yeah, we did talk when we met about concerns about the wage study. We reminded the department heads and electeds that even if there's a final study released by Amy Sell, there's an appeal process for them. It's through this board, right? It's through the commissioners. They can always come and appeal to the board to say, this study doesn't apply to me and this is why I'm different. This is why you should do something different for my department. That process is always available to them, especially if the study were to get it wrong.
Or if they had more data points from outside sources that they were able to provide.
Bring it to the decision makers.
Bring it to us
Yes.
and
Wage
we'll
study's a tool.
we'll study it, we'll look at it and make a
And
recommendation.
we went through that with the last study. Department heads and electeds had the opportunity to come to the board and give us whatever information they have.
Oh, I did have, so hypothetical, if we were to pull off a hypothetical, let's say we found $750,000. That we're
Ongoing,
ongoing,
okay.
like, again, using my scenario here, a legacy increase in revenues, $750,000 a year. Could you put together a list of the most egregious? And how many of those folks could we address? Is that possible? Yes. That's what I'd like to see. Because that way we have something to see and give us an idea of how many people we could actually affect if we went the most egregiously underpaid and we had $750,000 of continual legacy increases in revenue. How many people could we positively affect? If you could do something like that, I know I would appreciate that. Is that at all possible, ma'am? I know she's not, and I'm not sure
Yes.
VDOC is on board with my question. I'm sorry.
I can even do it.
Oh,
that?
man. Okay, I don't follow. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes,
Appreciate you.
yes, yes. We did talk a lot in that meeting about internally, right? And what can we do internally? I know we dipped our toe in scoring some positions internally. But in that wasn't popular really, but a market study, that's something we can handle every year. That's not something that we need to spend tens of thousands of dollars, right? In that meeting, we talked about county's websites having a lot of this information that HR or a committee maybe could go and research. So I think this is the start of maybe doing something different. We're gonna hear from insurance committee up next about recommendations there. It's been a very successful way to go about the wage study. I know this isn't coming out as quick as everyone had hoped or in the way everyone had hoped. I don't know how much actually does come out how we hope. But maybe a committee for for wage study is the way to go to, right? To get
Some
those.
counties do
ideas
that.
on the
Some
table.
counties have compensation committees.
Right.
And they make recommendations to the full board.
And they do the work of the wage study, people that we hire out.
I think Commissioner Swaney has brought that up.
And I think in this, given the process we've gone through, I think we have more
Willing
that
to
are
be engaged.
willing to be
Yeah.
engaged in the wealth of knowledge that we have here at this county. Right, if they all stay with us, they could be that wage study for us.
So maybe next step, are we looking at having a compensation committee that's gonna review the wage study and we can put a dollar
That's
amount
what
on
you
the
would
table?
like. That's what the board
Or
would
are we
like.
looking at a finance committee doing that?
I think that's up to you. I think that's up to your pleasure.
I don't have a problem with a committee doing it. I don't want to start opening up a process where people are gonna be suspect that, well, because that person's on the committee, that department's gonna fare better. That's the only concern I have over that.
We talked about maybe having rotating members on a committee
Yep.
too, right? So it was different every time so that you couldn't give favor to someone in hopes for a quick vote.
The other thing I wouldn't want to do is set up something that's so burdensome that it's gonna take forever to get a recommendation out of.
We have to make sure we follow the Sweeney principle,
Mm-hmm.
maintain our ability to be nimble. Yes. Okay.
Will Amy Sell come up with a recommendation for implementation, knowing our financial situation, or she won't, you just give us
I don't
the
think
data?
so. Yeah, she'll give us the most, most underpaid. We'll have that data if we want to go that route. Whether we want to implement 100% or something less, that would be up to the board. Nobody wants to handle the implementation. Right? But we've talked about some good things. We can get you that, I can get him that list, that Excel. Get you all that for your consideration.
The starting point.
Maybe keep the discussion on the agenda.
I think you need to take this to the full board.
We'll keep it on for Tuesday.
Yeah, I
Talk with
don't
the
think
board.
a subcommittee for implementation of this,
No.
at this point, I mean, the insurance committee started 2 years ago, started digging into this stuff. Maybe ongoing in the future, there's a compensation committee that keeps looking at.
I think we should take all these ideas to the full board,
Mhm.
have a conversation. Agreed.
One thing I do want to point out, wage study implementation is to, that's looking at the salary of a position. It's not looking at an office to say what positions they need, right? So I know there was a restructure of an office brought to a committee this morning, and I just wanted to point out the difference. We've had lots of our offices come forward with successful restructures, right? Where they say, over time, the duties are now this from here. We don't need employee position X anymore. We need position Y. It's a restructure, right? Y is still the same pay grade that it was from the last study. We're not increasing pay grades there. It seems like maybe there was some confusion this morning about what was happening, so I just wanted to make sure we all understand that. Okay, do you want to open it up to anyone out there about wage study at this time?
Do we have anybody interested out there?
Very interested in the numbers and stuff, things on it. You do a wage study to balance your internal and your external marketing stuff. Pick and choose who's underpaid, who's not, Wage study, telling you where they think that they should possibly be. Now, a lot of the comparisons that happen, there were factors for it, like inspections and things like that. That were compared to the city of Mount Pleasant. There's a lot of things in that study that I think needs to come to the attention of.
Mhm.
And he, or whoever's going to see it.
Right.
Because I think individually, think they should be able to speak on behalf of why. Changes from the last study to this study, that's major. I'm saying going down, like in our case, chief deputy's position, well, laid out below. I brought the attention to that to Excel. Excel at one of my other employees hired than my chief deputy. And all she did was drop that person down. No, moving the chief deputy, drop down. So I have some concerns. I have some concerns when you start picking and choosing different entities that have make against general fund. You guys control which money Commission on Aging gets, Parks gets, some of those things and what they do by what you allow in the village portion. Your side of it. Are people under the general fund? Did we fail because we didn't, save some money for employees where these guys have the money's allotted and they get to do raises and all that kind of stuff? They create equity for a whole lot quicker. Then I think you need to define, if you're going to do that, what's possible to use. And I haven't really technically involved. Okay. Sales bullshit. My people are in, most of are in the league technical. Assistant treasurer and yourself are not. You have to be by law. Have to be the general fund. All different funds made up. You got going along. You've got things from the sheriff's department. We've all different, things. It's I would hate to see you go that route, but I understand there's a lot more to having the AV cell 2, 3 months, whatever snapshot, give it to us. Some kind of reiteration back for justification. We should have to justify. We should have to justify every line item we have in our budgets. Right. Okay. And we have. I keep hearing that, we go line item by line item. We do it every year. We've done it for 34 years. So I just think that jumping into all the questions that you raised were good questions. But I think you need to, once you set a policy, stay with the policy. That's been the biggest fault that we've had over the years that I've seen. When it comes to job studies. Allow this with job internally, the worth of that person in our internal structure. If raise, whatever the reasons they were, they have to adjust that. Because we called it reconstruction or reorganization, new legislative laws. It used to be you can't change, your positions because it was a point system. You have so many points. The only way you can get extra points is if legislation changed or something drastically got added to your department. Okay, that would create more points. Changing points internally. What somebody has to lose, somebody has to gain. That way. But we went away from that. So I will be contacting you. I have already. Yeah.
I will tell you too, Treasurer Pickens, it's not specifically on the agenda, but in our discussion about fiscal 2020 budget on the agenda, the draft, we will be talking specifically about chief deputy salaries, because if we're not implementing the wage study right now, then the board has to have a conversation about chief deputy salaries, and are they going to continue the way they are, because they're all set at a percentage of the elected. So we are going to have that specific discussion in just a little bit. Doesn't change things with Amy Sell. Please still reach out to Amy Sell, because they need to logic that out. The chief needs to be up here in the structure, and they need to understand that. So I'm not saying don't continue to reach out to them. Please do.
Yeah, my only comment would be, I think what Tobin was saying really kind of correctly was like do a percentage of across the board kind of thing. I think fairness is going to be the best. You address these problems. I have both funds that are separate funds as well as general. So I have employees in both of those. some employees being raised, and others aren't, like, you know, having a percentage, like over 5 years, 20%, you know, knowing what that number is, moving in some fashion that way, having equity across the organization is gonna be better than unions get it because they're unions, these guys get it because they're this, these guys get it because they're that. This was the most egregious. I just think some equity and some sensible thought process to equity would be best suited to all of us.
I'm kind of, I guess, feel similar, maybe when we're talking and the comment is the most egregious. I just want to make the point that maybe there's a higher paid employee who needs to come up $13,000. But for the employee who is lower on the scale and they're only supposed to come up $2,000, but maybe that actually brings their pay above what's considered a poverty level, or it makes a massive difference for their families. I just want to make sure that when we're talking about what's the most egregious,
Percent.
there's got to be some sort of like concrete.
I think it's the
range.
percentage.
Yeah, we use
That
percentage,
doesn't-
not dollar, and we're not talking
Talking
dollar
dollars, no.
amounts. We're talking
So I just wanna advocate for
percentages.
that, because I think keep hearing we need to be objective, we need to be objective. Well, you're saying the most egregious that could become.
Right.
Subjective kind of fast.
Yeah.
Right.
That's my own point.
Thank you for that. Good clarification. I'm always talking about percentages, never dollar
Also,
amount.
you have to understand percentages. Somebody gets a 3% raise, it's making 30 grand. Somebody's making 15 grand. Dollar wise.
Exactly.
That's all.
It doesn't equate out to equal. Over the years, people still do that percentage.
I would say too, I mean, I agree, I think we need to be fair and equitable, but I think also we've had employees watching over the last year. And we say we don't want to pick and choose, but we have had departments come before the board has approved raising salaries, they turn around and turn the next one down. So I think, and when staff are saying, they're hearing, wait till the wage study, that's what they've been doing. And I feel like, you know, if we can implement something, and you've implemented things earlier this year for other departments. Others did not get it. If we can implement something, definitely. But across the board, I mean, that's what I think we need to look at, the fair and equity, because it has not been. I don't think it has been fair and equitable.
Say, that I go back to the reference of committee, you know, the health, kind of. This through to get to you guys. It's one of the biggest things that I see between the difference of the two wage studies that I've been here for. Is that there's nothing between things on the campus is not common against the former or present administrator. There's nothing that insulates the administrator between that study and the by having that committee, at least that gets that through. The last wage study, the original wage study that I was here for, the administrator is the one that kind of dictated how that study come to the board of commissioners. And the sad part about it was is that I got a phone call to discuss my department. Knowing as soon as I took that call, there was nothing to put. So, you know, I think having that committee kind of helps, you know, that all of that out, we have that conversation. So it's a third party bringing that in an ancient.
I'd like to make one point there. I'm all about the fair, that's the next deal at all. If you're taking a position that is 15% underpaid, and you're gonna say we're gonna go 10% across the board, that position now is only 5% underpaid. If you have a position that's 30 or 40% underpaid, and you get them to 10%, you're still 20 to 30% underpaid. I don't quite see the fairness and equity of that.
Yeah,
So in the spreadsheet that I would be working on, that I thought we were looking at would be, so if you're looking at the most underpaid folks, then to me, you would address those first and not address the others. So where, like your philosophy, the others are, maybe they're just right paid, right? Maybe, and So if you've got those underpaid down here, you've got to bring them up to just right paid before you take your just right paid folks up here.
Even though that are.
Or you're gonna
saying
get
that-
further.
I agree with the comment that Alexis made, that some of these people that are making a very small wage, that one percentage would make a big difference in their life. I can agree with that.
Yeah,
I mean, if you're looking at percentage wise of it, and how much somebody is underpaid. Maybe you take where, say, everybody's gonna be 10% underpaid, or 15% underpaid. We get equity that way in the fairness that, okay, we're all
But
10% underpaid.
but to his point, if you go 10% underpaid, you got somebody making $100,000 and they're 10% underpaid, that's $10,000, right? For
It's
them.
still about the duties and responsibilities.
Correct, I understand, but when you're talking 10%, that's something that makes 50,000, that's $5,000, they're only making 50,000, $5,000 for somebody making 50,000 is impactful. Okay, so my feeling is on a percentage basis, we should make people whole based on their percentage of being underpaid. If they're 10-15% underpaid, they should be given a raise of 15% to make them equitable with the people that are in that position. We may have people that are 5, 8, 9% underpaid, and we have people that were 10% underpaid and they're made whole. Again, there are gonna be some issues with this, no matter how we implement, there are going to be issues, whatever it is. We need to try to move towards the most fair and equitable way of implementing this that we can.
The big thing is you have to have policies, you have to stick with policies.
Mhm.
And one of those policies need to say, comes back to overpay. What are you gonna do? We had a last job study that we had blue cruiser people that showed technically as overpaid according to the study. We did redline them, we did kick away, we did rate, which I'm not saying is right or wrong, but they're getting cost of living, so what that job study said, they're overpaid by $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 are now going to cost of living to give it to everybody, and you're throwing that scale farther. You know, often think so. You come to a policy, you get to the policy, set the policy, and it's only certain reasons why you could come to the board and ask for raises. I think you need to stay solid on that. I don't think you'll get those far-reaching offshoots. Call for the balance.
Right.
Well, again,
Right.
we have not talked about overpay. What is our general consensus or thoughts on those who are, according to the wage study, overcompensated? What are your thoughts, sir?
My thoughts, that they, and I've seen this in other counties, that they get frozen in pay until they get in equilibrium with the wage study. So, I mean, if you get somebody that's making significant more than the wage study, maybe they don't get the COLA for a particular year. They get frozen as they are till they come up to that equilibrium.
I think it comes down to, do we take the wage study as gospel and go completely by that? Or do we have room to say, well, maybe they didn't get this part right? Wage studies always undervalue those lowest paid people, in my experience. People that work with their hands, that do the manual labor. Those jobs are always undervalued by wage studies, and that's what we felt with the last wage study, is that, yeah, we could redline custodians for 10 years and try to get them to, and I'm not picking on custodians, I just use that as an example, but that was one of them, that they said were overpaid. I think all the positions they identified that were overpaid were way down here on the wage scale. So people already struggling, you're gonna redline those people and tell them they're never getting a raise.
And so what benefit
That-
for the group, right? There's not savings in that, right? There's not meaningful.
There's not
savings
meaningful
to that.
savings in that.
Right. So
Right,
again,
right.
I believe that's something we would address in our policy. We create
Mhm.
above X salary, you could be potentially redlined.
Oh.
That is,
Rather than.
that is something that I would hope when treasurer, whoever talks about policies, that has to be, written in there. It has to be set in stone. With the last wage study, there was no redlining, with the exception of one position that I know. The one position that I feel
if we're looking at any of these positions in this county, should not have been redlined, and it was. And so we need to, and not, it didn't come to the board to be redlined. It was just made that way,
It was a decision made by the administration.
administration.
Okay.
When they posted that position, if the
Yep.
position came vacant and when it was posted at.
What the wage study,
Which had been
New.
approved by the board and the.
yes, but we didn't do that for any
Right.
other, anybody else who came in. There was nothing, there, no one was brought in at a lower pay grade. I don't believe, but maybe there was, maybe whoever, if anyone had positions. I'm talking about you,
Yes,
sir.
it is.
You-
it
you
is
are the
with
one,
The hand and the
so,
face in the background. That's the
um,
one.
And that just, it hasn't sat right for X amount of years, and it shouldn't have happened. So if we have these policies in place that we talk about,
Gotta stick to it.
then we're gonna stick to them, and that will hopefully won't happen again.
And that's what I think in this policy has to be our focus. It really does, because the
It's
implementation,
always your focus. We
it's
take
really
care
got-
of the.
it's really
things that
gotta
have
be
to
in this
happen from
case.
there.
okay, because we gotta spend a decent amount of time working through this policy. But I did want to kind of come back, you guys think that that's something we should consider, is if we do red line, it's only above a certain dollar amount in income, because again, I don't want to adversely affect someone that's, to making barely a livable wage, right? And that doesn't sound right to me either. But that's something you can consider,
You said red line above a
only
certain,
above certain, say, 45,000 or 50,000 or something. Just a
Let's
dime
suggest
thing,
this.
just a suggestion, but again, any dollar amount of some kind that we can agree to, that we don't red line below that.
Right.
Because again, that penalizes.
Let's, maybe there's one thing we could do. I mean, we have all kinds of ideas on how to proceed. We know we need to have a policy that is, objective across the board. We can't be the only county that has gone through this struggle. Is there a way to get hold of MAC? I mean, maybe other counties have policies that we could take a look at and modify to suit our needs, but instead of starting right from scratch,
Best practice.
we have over 2,000 counties across the nation, and somebody's gotta have a
Yeah.
policy that might work for us.
Mhm.
But give us a start anyhow.
And,
Perfect.
and I know the chair has advocated for the insurance committee, right? That was a very good thing. I'm wondering if we shouldn't have a wage study compensation policy committee,
these all sound like great questions for a committee,
right?
for not three brains, but
Right.
multiple
Yeah.
brains.
Right, so would it be something we might want to take to our work session and discuss whether a committee might be advantageous to formulating a policy for
Like
implementation?
it. I like that idea.
You want the discussion Tuesday?
Yeah,
Does that work for you, sir?
Sure. So,
Marcus,
We have one more person.
so I just had two clarifications. You said a FOIA was sent out to somebody. I hope we share that FOIA internally, so we know what that person says, and if there's any information that comes back to us, is that a full, did they get a full study? Do they know it was a partial study? If that comes back, if there's any questions, from department heads, we can say, no, the FOIA that was sent out that time was whatever it was, that's what it is. Whatever our concluded one is, give them the full transparency of wage studies done. Then to recap, what I heard in this meeting today, dedicate the new revenue towards the employees. Review the wage study to ID the egregious, which was basically, as I understood it, looking at what Amy Sell has in her document already, and it tells you whose differences. That's easy enough to have that. We talked about looking at the general fund versus special funds, and maybe being able to move faster with certain funds versus others to help employee retention. Key positions that you talked about for people, and then you talked about, can you afford this discussion? Department heads work with the administration to use their budgets wisely, to be frugal, make sure that they come in on budget or under budget. We want to develop a policy, and maybe that policy leads towards the department heads have a discussion with the administrator stay below whatever the wage study recommends? Can you afford it in your budget? How quickly do we need to address the people who are? Is that what I heard?
I think so.
Good to you?
I'd like to make one more comment about this. If you look at the compo ratio for the percent underpaid, if you look at that, there's a flaw in the information we gave them itself. We gave them actual individual wages. And if you look at that, some of those wages are starting year 1 wage. Some of them are topped out at year 5 wage. So that percentage number is skewed because of that fact. I think we probably should do was hand them our wage scale, say this position was a grade 10. And let them decide if they're gonna use all the starting wages, or the end wages, or the middle wages, but you have it all over the board in that wage.
And in that wage study, if you make it 5 steps, it might give you the reason for our employees to be retained, right? 5 years here, I know I'm gonna keep going up and I invested in whatever we have for retirement or so on and so forth. As a tool to change it into that, plug them in so they know where their scale is. Because we have certain people, certain scales that it's less than $1,000 that you talked about, and pull them in. More importantly, they would know their future on a 5-point scale for the next week. That would help us retain. Whatever they're doing. This other option. Yeah, and I do want to comment that that was an excellent decision by the board to allow the budget administrators, when they're looking at talent to try and fulfill positions in the county. That is a huge tool to be able to assign a new employee and pay level. You're basically going to develop a new tool. Says here's the wage study. Let the department heads work with the administrator. If the wage study impacts the department head, the department heads having the wage study discussion with the administrator. Can this fund afford it going forward? And then it's also not a delay in the government getting action done, which is people want trust and transparency brought like that. It's very quick and easy.
Thank you.
I think we've chewed this up pretty good.
Oh,
Got a
I
lot of
thought
good
that was
discussion, a lot of
not-
ideas.
Got a lot to talk
And I
about.
do appreciate, I think this is the first time I've seen this on our committee agenda, so I think this is the beginning.
We'll make sure that that discussion goes on to the work session.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
Thank you, everybody. Yes.
We'll move on into item number 8, which is discussion regarding the insurance committee recommendations.
Oh, excellent. You want to, yep, thanks over, and give me a couple and I'll throw them over there.
I have one question.
That's okay.
When we got the notification of the FOIA for the wage study, it didn't say who asked the FOIA. Is that something that's public information or?
Suppose you could FOIA it.
Huh?
I suppose you could FOIA it, but, I
That's something
I
we
will,
want to put out in a public.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So
All right,
we can discuss it offline. Also, this might help the discussion. This is a survey that recently took place regarding the in lieu. Thank you so very much. So, as you know, the insurance committee has been meeting almost for a couple of years now, which is fantastic. And this year, very needed, because when we got our renewal back from Blue Cross Blue Shield, our costs were going up 21% this year. Now, we have built into the fiscal 25 budgets 10% increase, and that's traditionally what we do for healthcare. And traditionally, that's quite enough. But this year it was quite deficient. And as you know, previous talks in this finance committee gave the directive to the insurance committee really that they needed to get within or below budgeted amounts. The increase would be about just over $900,000 on a flat renewal with Blue Cross Blue Shield with our current PPO plan. So, pardon? For all funds, yes, not just general fund. General fund being about 75-ish% of that $900,000. So we didn't have enough built in and the insurance committee worked with Lisa Hoppy from Acrisure, used to be 44 North. Lisa Hoppy went out and got quotes from as many carriers as would quote us. She quoted us for self-insured medical and prescriptions. She quoted us fully insured medical prescriptions. She quoted us how we are now with fully insured medical and self-insured prescriptions with Arrow RX. And that is what the recommendation you'll see from the committee is to continue. The first one is Blue Cross Blue Shield. It's a PPO, but it's called Simply Blues. Simply Blue. There are a few differences from the current plan. Chiropractic visits max at 12 a year. ER copay is not waived for accidents. That's something that happens now. But some minor changes like that shouldn't be majorly disruptive to our employees. In fact, so little disruption that we don't have to have a new open enrollment for it, right? Because if you think about it, we always, and this is a little known fact, it always happens behind the scenes. Our plan with Blue Cross changes October 1. Our rates, I'm sorry, I'm doing that backward. Our rates with Blue Cross change October 1. The plan changes January 1. But with this year, the plan will change October 1 if we move to Simply Blue. It is a PPO, very similar, shouldn't be a lot of disruption.
I thought it was still 1 year.
The plan changes October 1, but our cost shares are gonna stay the same. We won't change cost shares until January 1.
Okay.
If we changed cost shares now, effective October 1, that would force us to have an open enrollment in the next couple of months because that would be a big change and employees get to know about that change before they elect coverage starting January 1.
I was thinking the effective date though for the benefit would still be 1/1.
I think it's
Keeping an
October 1.
open enrollment, it can't be, it's not 1/1 because we'd have to do open enrollment in September. August, remember?
Right, I
But we're
think,
keeping-
well, we still have to have an open enrollment in November for 1/1, but that would be with cost shares, with the new in lieu amount, with the, excuse me, the new HRA, here's your plan A, B, and C. That's all figured out, make your decision for January. That'll still need to happen in November.
But how can it be effective October 1 if it doesn't happen? To me? Like, how can, if I change to? Plan
Because
A
the
to plan-
board is making a decision to go with Simply Blue versus the PPO that we have.
Okay,
And because it's so similar to the plan that we have, what the employee is experiencing won't change that much. And
Okay.
Blue Cross Blue Shield, remember, is honoring those co-insurances and those deductibles for our employee back to January 1 of this year. And they'll do that for that last quarter, even though we're on the new plan. If you're on BNC and you currently have a deductible or co-insurance, Blue Cross Blue Shield is gonna still keep that in the calendar year. So I think that's part of why,
okay, maybe that's what I'm thinking.
I think, yeah. Sorry. Those of you in the insurance committee, please correct me if we're going
Okay.
off pace. So with the switch to Simply Blue, that brings the collective increase to 10.46, I think that number is. That is keeping the 3 HRA plans. And the insurance committee is recommending that we keep Plan C as a free plan. You don't have to, we're not obligated to, but employees have come to enjoy that and rely maybe on that. So they're still saying Plan C should be free to employees. Plan B and Plan A would pay the difference in the cost of the benefits as compared to C. So we get illustrative rates in these renewals. Because remember, we buy that high deductible plan. We have an internal HRA that takes those high deductibles down to lower deductibles, A, B, and C plans.
They're really all the same plan. It's different.
That's exactly right, correct. And so the thought has always been that the people in plans A and B, because they have lesser deductibles and lesser co-insurances, that the cost of their premiums, the cost share, the employee cost share would pay for that benefit. But it doesn't, right? Right now, the HRA spends $600,000 a year. Employee cost shares are about $250,000 a year. So that kind of tells you where that's at. The insurance committee says that plans B and C should pay for that buy-up. That doesn't mean that they cover the $500,000 to $600,000 of the HRA, because the HRA costs are still associated with Plan C as well, right? We have some HRA costs there. So what the insurance committee is saying is that benefit you're giving to Plan C, give the same benefit to B and A, and then B and A buy up based on that illustrative rate to those better coverages, if you will. Okay? Oh, saving about 19,000 by moving to MetLife for dental vision and for life disability. Right now we have Blue Cross Blue Shield for dental and vision. And the cost really wasn't too different between them. We were saving a bit with MetLife. Life and disability currently we have with Lincoln. There are some customer service issues there that are kind of encouraging us to change. So by moving all three of those products to MetLife, we'll save about $19,000. I think the disability increase alone was $8,000 just on a renewal with Lincoln. Now, one thing, we do have same benefits, but new carrier. Increased benefit for voluntary life is that children can stay on the plan through age 26 instead of 19. So that is a little enhanced benefit to move, I suppose, with MetLife. One of the other things we did with disability, we are paying for higher coverage than we need. And we just kind of right-sized that coverage, brought it down, short-term 66%, long-term 60%. So we just kind of brought those maximums down. Employee cost shares will continue as is, said, until December 31st, but they will be changing effective January 1st. And the insurance committee is recommending going to the full 26 pays of premiums instead of the current 20. We only do it at 24 pays. And so employees enjoy 2 paychecks a year that have a little bit more in it, but the insurance committee thought that was a good way to.
Really painless way
Yes.
to increase cost shares.
Yes, very painless. As we mentioned, we'll continue having open enrollment this November for benefits effective January 1. So through our budget process, we'll come up with those cost shares, right? We'll look at the illustrative rates, we'll look at A, B, and C, and we'll equate it so that everyone gets basically the equivalent of a C plan and then buys up appropriately from there. And we're excited because it'll be mathematically based. Lisa Happy does warn us that that will work for this year, maybe next year, and maybe another one. But as we change those employee cost shares, you're going to have migration from between plans, and so then as that happens, your math is going to change. So we will look at that when Lisa tells us it's changed enough to look, I suppose. So through the budget process, we'll work through cost shares and we'll continue to bring those forward to the committee and hash those out. Also the in lieu benefit. So this is what people receive, employees receive for not taking our insurance. Right now it's $100 per pay. So they receive $2,600 a year. That is what this survey was about. We've been doing a little work on the insurance committee to find out what would entice people to opt out and save the county money, right? Do our employees have other coverage that they can get on? Have they researched that they have other insurance to get on? And clearly it's a confusing thing because while 41% believe they're eligible for other group coverage, close to 80 people have or haven't followed up. So, I mean, it's not maybe the information that we had hoped to get, but it does. There's a lot of comments in here. There's a lot of ranges in terms of, we flat out asked them, open-ended question, what would it take for you to opt out? If you do have, other coverage, you can get on. It's interesting because math-wise, as long as we keep the opt-out lesser than the cost of single coverage, the math is always gonna work for the county, right? You'll never be at risk if you have that in lieu, if you increase it to less than a single coverage, because then as you have a new employee come on, right, if they opt out, budget-wise, you're okay. We thought budget-wise, this just kind of starts the conversation about increasing that in lieu amount. Lisa Hoppy does tell us we are right at industry standard with our $100 per pay. But we know mathematically we could save more. Budget-wise, if you decide that the in lieu will increase, then budget-wise, we'll build in enough increase in the budget as if the 7 or 8 we have opting out are the only ones that continue, right? Because it could be that we increase the in lieu and no additional opt-out. It could. And so we'd have a little additional expense for those already opting out, right? That's not built in. So we'll make sure we build that in, and then after open enrollment, we'll have to do a budget amendment to right size that going forward. Because I'm sure there'll be changes if the cost shares change.
Depending on what it is.
Yes.
Sign on this. I know I want to start.
Anybody from the, I know there's a lot of folks
I know I want to
from
start.
the insurance committee here, or a couple. Is there anything you guys want to add?
Let me say something real quick.
Oh, I'm not chairman.
Go ahead.
Okay, I know I came to all of you and I kind of gave you a challenge to get the cost of our insurance under 10% increase. Right? And I said, that's all the money we have. We budgeted 10%. We have a balanced budget. It needs to be 10%. So I applaud you guys for the work that went into coming up with this recommendation. This is impressive. The extent and the depth to which you've delved into this and looked at every single facet of this to get us down to a 10.46 increase versus what we were facing of 21% without overly adversely affecting the employees who work for Isabella County. That's impressive. I gotta tell you, kudos, thank you. All right, so go ahead from there.
I was gonna say the same thing. When I was reading this, I was quite surprised of the effort that the committee put in and the cost savings that we're looking at. We continue to provide a high quality of care for our employees at a price that we can continue to doing what we've done in the past. And to do a thank you. Question is, when are we ready then to move on for a factual approval with the board? I mean, what are we looking at?
Tuesday.
Tuesday, okay.
I think we'll have a motion on your agenda Tuesday. Basically, that is we don't have one to follow. I don't know that the board has done this before, but it'll be to move to the Simply Blue PPO platform. It'll be to move to MetLife for dental vision, life disability, that type of thing. Opt out, in lieu, cost shares, that won't be a part of it. What we need right now is direction from the board in terms of what our plan's gonna be. That cost shares aren't changing until January 1. Those are the types of things that would cause us to have an open enrollment next month, which we can do. We're equipped to do that. We can do that, but the committee really felt like this would offer the least disruption to employees.
It's so sucked. It'd be really quick turnaround time.
It
between now
would be
and
quick.
Open enrollment and
Very little disruption. There were other plans that were not Blue Cross. That's a scary thing.
start all over.
In the middle of Michigan to go with somebody that is not Blue Cross. But yeah, I just want to thank everybody that's been on that committee. It's been fantastic. A lot of discussion. We had a meeting 2 weeks ago that lasted about 2.5 hours. But we've been getting right down to the weeds on all of it. And it's complex, but we've dove into it. And no, this is the Simply Blue is a 10.46% increase, but there's opportunity for more savings if we cost that plan A and plan B according to that buy up like we talked about. So there could possibly
less.
be, yes,
Correct.
Really?
there could be more savings.
That's what I'm at. I'm
to
looking
come.
for. Really?
Yes.
if we, and I
Okay.
don't know. There's others that have articulated this better than maybe I can, but to cost that to have Plan C as your baseline and then the buy up, make that buy up actual rather than just a number. There's room for,
Percentage.
for,
It's always more.
yes, there's room for more,
Percentage.
more savings there. And this, even with the changes, this causes very little disruption. I mean, it doesn't even require an open enrollment for what we're gonna talk about Tuesday. So sticking with Blue Cross, slightly different plan, limits how many chiropractor visits you can make. So if you go to the chiropractor, you might be unhappy with us, get 12 visits instead of 24. And that emergency room fee that you're gonna pay if you have an accident. Other than that, there's
Shouldn't
not,
deter anyone from going to the emergency room, right?
no. Not a lot of changes. So again, I thank everyone that's been on that committee. We've been meeting weekly for the last month. Very impressive.
Good thing.
Yeah,
I would share all these spreadsheets with you, but,
it'll make your head hurt after.
This synopsis is more than enough. I tried to understand it before.
we lit.
And Lisa, initially I had some concerns about Lisa Hoppy really being this involved in that committee. She's got a vested interest.
Right.
I was afraid of her kind of steering that, but she really hasn't. She has sat back and kind of let the conversation
And this group.
go where it will.
better.
This group will not let her in.
No, that doesn't happen. I know better than that.
And she has done a ton of work for us.
Very forthcoming.
Yep.
Very transparent.
So the,
So do you happen to know what the cost shares look like? So if we don't have a full upload, what are we looking at for them for starting January 1? Like,
Well, that'll evolve. It's not like it's not like we know and we're keeping it. The meeting was yesterday afternoon.
That idea
We haven't
kind of
gotten-
surfaced yesterday. So we haven't really.
Fully fleshed it out.
Yeah.
We need a little time to flesh that out.
I mean, I just want it to look like it's quite a bit, like I'm just.
Yeah.
I don't think it's gonna be a huge, and if it is, you can always come up with a plan that phases it in, we increase it a little bit this year, a little bit more next year, so that.
So the discussion really was more based on, do we keep the HRAs at the level they are, right? Because you're gonna pay it either in cost share premium or in deductible. But the conversations really were, those in Plan A have appreciated that $0 deductible for so long that.
Plenty. Oh, wait, no, C is free.
Yeah, A is the zero deductible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Other way
Zero
around.
cost share.
No, that's fine. Well, either way, you think about it, Plan C has been
Okay.
zero cost share, so they thought we should keep that. Plan A's been zero deductible. And so if we appreciate that and like that, then you've got to pay that on the cost share side, right? I haven't ran the numbers to know what that looks like yet, but it'll be based on mathematical and it has to be affordable, right? Affordable Care Act says we have to give you affordable coverage, so it's not gonna be astronomical. For sure.
the emergency room fee increase, I know it's $150 now. You go in emergency room unless you're
Still
admitted.
the same fee, it's just not waived in an accident, it wouldn't be waived in an accident any longer. Right now, apparently, if you're in an accident and go to the ER, it's waived.
So if you drop from a ladder 12 foot, it's waived.
That would be considered an accident, I would hope.
Some plans, like my employer, it's only waived if you're admitted.
Yes, right, yes. And one thing we've learned that ER, insurance does not cover issues of the mouth. So if you have any dental issues, never go to the ER, call your dentist, call your after hours doesn't cover. Unfortunate, an employee had to learn that for us, but spread the word.
Got one last.
Okay.
Thank you, Chairman. No. This- Excuse me, putting this insurance committee together. Thank you for mandating this. This has been quite a process. I think this is a model which by all counties should utilize in order to be able to get the best possible coverage for their employees, but also minimizing costs to the county. So thank you for that.
Maybe we'll
It's-
send our insurance committee.
Thanks for saying that. It's helped tremendously in just educating everyone.
Yeah.
And these were decisions that were made in the admin office prior. Yep, and then it was put in front of the board,
Without any end.
right?
That's great. This is such a great model.
Well, I think we'll move on to the next item at this point. Discussion regarding the American Rescue Plan Act funds.
Awesome. Just thought it'd been a while since we talked about ARPA and we've got a big deadline coming up, end of year. End of year, we have to have our funds obligated, okay? Spent by the end of December 2026. Director Hanson knows the dollars, the ARPA dollars that have been appropriated to the Coldwater Lake Family Park Sewer Project have to be spent by December 31st, 2026, and she has to be in some kind of an agreement to spend them by the end of this year, right? Now, you'll see the top part. Thank you, Melissa, for separating it like this. It's very clear. Top part is our $10,000 lost revenue allowance. Bottom part is the remaining 3.5 million in ARPA. You can see from the top what we've spent the ARPA dollars on. And the unspent is the HVAC replacement at County Admin Building. We've been holding that back. So either by the end of this year, we will either spend it and purchase HVAC equipment on the county rebuild, or enter a contract for that equipment that we can spend it within the next
Are you
year.
fiscal year or calendar?
Calendar.
Calendar year. This is all a calendar year,
Yep.
correct?
Yes, sir. Except for the FY stuff. Yes.
Oh, God.
Yes, deadlines are calendar year. So you can see we've got still just a little over $1 million left HVAC replacement, which was the plan, and that amount will offset the borrow, right? Which is nice. We're gonna borrow 11 million. This would help to bring that cost of that project down to 10 million if we so chose. Down below the direct cost, you see everything that we've spent so far, last fiscals, and what we plan to spend this year. The 150,000 for Board of Commissioner Chambers AV upgrades will still likely go towards that purpose. It'll just be part of the county rebuild project. So again, before the end of this year, we have to formally obligate that through either buying equipment or entering an agreement. You know, we did a budget amendment to bring dollars in for ARPA. And said, no, it wasn't a budget amendment, maybe a commitment of HVAC.
Appropriated.
That doesn't do it. That's not enough. The recent ARPA webinar I went through, a budget amendment from the board or board action isn't enough. It's gotta be an outside third party that commits us to
Contract.
spending those
We need
dollars.
to enter into
Yeah.
a contract.
Yeah, so that becomes
Okay.
important for these unspent dollars, right? Like the Coldwater Lake Family Park Sewer Project, like the foreclosure prevention project, right? We're gonna have to, if those aren't somehow obligated by close to the end of the year, we're gonna have to figure out an obligation for them. Foreclosure prevention and the HVAC, really, we're down to those last few things. Are there any questions about that? I did in that webinar, there's some new rule about payroll that we can use these towards payroll costs additional, but we haven't used already. So that might be a way to obligate some funds by the end of the year, kind of like we did with our lost revenue up top. You apply it towards payroll and then you don't use your budgeted dollars towards payroll, so you've got essentially. some
Background, cover those costs later.
You've got it. But super important, the message here, we can't fall down on this. By the end of this year, we have to make sure these rest of these funds are obligated or spent,
Contract.
or we're sending them back next year. Questions?
No, I just looking at the chamber, Board of Commissioners chamber upgrades, 150,000. We'd have to buy equipment or something by that time, which we're buying it in advance, knowing exactly what we need. Would it be better just to reassign those to the HVAC project or do something else?
Because essentially the whole thing is for that project. I think once we have a contract with Spence,
We take
I think
roll all that in.
all of those can be
any of
obligated.
them that are
towards that.
still iffy.
And it's a large enough expense that it will take all of that, right?
Won't be like.
Exactly. Yeah. Just putting it on our radar and if
Appreciate
there's
that.
any questions.
Adding it to our regular agendas,
Yes,
probably a good idea.
yes, we certainly can. Looks like everything will go to work session, all of the discussion.
Like it.
Well, now we have discussion regarding the fiscal year 25 budget draft numbers. Should this be number 3 or 2?
Well, we were gonna call it number 3, but have you ever heard of the prank where the seniors take a couple of pigs and they release them in the high school as a prank, but that's not really the prank. The prank is that on the 2 pigs, one they paint a number 1 and one they paint a number 3, and the real prank is you spend all day looking for the
For number 2.
2, right? There isn't a number 2. So I was trying to avoid that.
Okay,
And nothing's changed, right? So if we put out a draft number 3 with a new date, y'all would hurt yourselves on trying to figure out
Okay.
what changed. Since nothing changed, we kept it number 2 until something does change.
You know, you
makes
know me
sense.
too well, don't you?
Getting to know that.
No, I was just.
So what do we need to talk about then? Remember, you've got in there about a $328,000 contingency. And very same as last time, and a couple of things at the top of that list still, wanting direction from the board to build into a draft, to a next draft. One of those things is the HATS contract. We have a contract with them currently, $175,000 a year. We know there's a section in that contract that if we deem the service unaffordable, that we can pull back on that. We also know that if HATS isn't there to run the shelter, we have to, and we know we can't do it for what they do it for. I was recently in conversations with the HATS president, Lee Fabiano, who said I could remind the board or let them know that last Friday they took an intake of 50 surrendered dogs. So that would have put a little bit on our plate if we didn't have HATS.
What are you gonna do from
I don't
Your
have
house?
room for $50.
Basement.
No.
basement, backyard fenced in? Oh,
So I think, we're back to affordability and value, right? And
Yeah, for what they do for 175,000, and we've had conversation with HATS, been a while now. That, we're under this budgetary pressure. They're amenable to a smaller dollar figure. But I don't know how you just cut them out and say we can't afford any of it, we're not doing any of it. We have to take care of dogs, we don't have to do anything with cats. They take dogs and cats, they adopt them out, they spay and neuter them. Which we wouldn't have to do everything that HATS does. But we would have to do some of it. We'd have to take care of stray dogs, and I don't know how we do that without them.
I think I suggested that, offer them 75,000 if they come up with 100,000 on their own and some fundraising efforts on their own parts, but maybe the benefit to us is definitely worth more than $75,000 as a county. But if we could extend to them, given our financial situation, maybe we can put up 75,000. Can they come up with the remainder? Was my thought.
So I know the county has to take problem dogs. If the animal control officer gets called and has to pick up a dog.
Yes.
But do we have to take surrendered dogs, surrendered pets?
Our ordinance.
When you're talking,
Our ordinance.
The dog law of 1918 and ordinance.
Depends on where they come from.
The problem is if you don't take surrendered dogs, then you're gonna be dealing with them anyway.
Right.
Right.
Gonna be-
Right. God bless you again.
so when you're talking $75,000, you're not talking, right now, we're only paying them about $125,000?
175.
175.
Oh, I thought that included the cost of the building, $175,000.
That's on top of. No, sir. We, on top of the 175 appropriation to HATS, we do maintain the building, we repair the building, we pay the light bill and the water bill and at the building. Mhm. Which we would need to do regardless of who managed the shelter, we still would have to have a shelter.
That's right. Couldn't do it.
No.
No.
That's why I'm asking. That's why I'm thinking if they
And I
have the
think that's where
ability.
Chairman's comment comes from, of we couldn't do it for what they do it for.
Right.
It's good.
But given our financial situation, I think we need to extend to them an opportunity to see what they can do. to Help make this work for us.
You know, I think there would be creating issues if we didn't send some funding their way, and I do think they are amenable working with us in this difficult time right now.
I think so. I don't know if 75,000 will get it done for them. We didn't throw that specific number out there, but I
Starting
think
point maybe.
we should meet with them pretty soon and get this hammered out.
Got to keep in mind, every dollar we provide to HATS is going to be $1 less we have for compensation
Right.
for
Everything else.
employees. So,
Mhm.
and I know we may have an obligation to have it. I don't know whether other options. I don't know if you've had a chance to contact adjoining counties to see if we could come into some contractual relationship with them. I know you've got the travel and time issue, transporting dogs, but
Do it less than 75,000. Not gonna happen. Did you have somebody else to do it for us? I don't see that.
Maybe continue the discussion at regular meetings specifically. We'll bring the budget discussion there to talk, but is that something you would like full board to vet? They'll be vetting the budget at some point.
Yeah,
We just need to know that amount to.
just be part of that budget discussion.
and my thoughts on it is, we do what we have to do as a county. What's mandated, there's a cost to that. And maybe you have to have a larger organization to do it, or maybe you can contract out. Maybe there's some other provider that'd be willing to operate, but is there a chance with, when you hear the cat problem in the city can't be a financial partner in this. They own the property. It just comes to a point that there's only so many dollars and
It would be nice to have a meeting, if we could, with Mr. Fabiano in advance of our board meeting. Just kind of flesh out what his thoughts are with this group.
Sure.
If he's even close to amenable to the
She.
Fabiano, okay.
Yeah, I don't know if that'd be possible before next week or not, but
I can find out.
Nice, good. Then we can lock this thing down, move on.
yeah, this is
We're not
kind of
going
been
for a
left
while.
hanging for a long time, yeah.
It needs to
Yes,
be
that's
addressed.
why we're
Yep.
addressing it. And then
Thank
that other one at the top of the list has been hanging for a while too. Just needing clear direction, knowing that there's some commissioners who support funding, that additional, I should say vacant assistant prosecuting attorney position. Right now, we have not received the instruction to build that into the budget.
Our contingencies, what, 328?
And then the other conversation I wanted to make sure we had that our elected officials need direction on this going forward. So out of the last wage study, we set chief deputy salaries at a percentage of the elected official, and that was they were pulled out of the wage scale, I believe, at the time and put on their own elected and appointed scale. We've all seen that. And again, there was an amount, I think they're all really close to 74-ish% of that elected. And the thought process is that they take over all of the elected's duties. And as Treasurer Pickens pointed out, the wage study, I think, missed that, right? And their inexperience with county government.
I studied way back, that's what it was. That's how we come up with that.
A percentage?
Yes.
Oh, excellent. I didn't know that.
Percentages, look across the board, not just between chief deputies and treasurer kind of thing. It was.
For structure.
It was officials, prosecutor made X number of dollars, the sheriff made this, his assistant made 23% under, treasurer made that. That was the guidelines of the percentage. Last study based on the way it was done in the past.
Great.
So that's how the percentage thing.
I'm actually glad to hear that that's what it's based on. That's a good foundation.
I didn't pick it up.
It's a good foundation and it logics, right? It logics, and we're not implementing the study right away for other things. We're not pulling chief deputies out to implement it for them. So for the electeds' peace of mind, for our understanding in the budget, I'm sure how it's built in right now is how it is current. Those chiefs are at a percentage of the elected salary. So that's how we intend it in fiscal year 25. I wanted to have that conversation so we just all understood that.
SOP for a long time
And I'm longer than I knew, so I'm really glad to hear that, actually.
Okay.
And then, of course, we heard the in-lieu and the health cost share amounts, probably 2 weeks, 2 weeks from now, we're back here again. We'll have numbers, we'll have some ideas of what cost shares look like, and we got to bring in the current, right? They've got to bring in at least what's current, and I do imagine that will be going up. So now that 10% increase we talked about for health insurance committee, remember only about 70% of that is general fund. So we're really close on what's built in already. I think it should be good news.
Okay.
Awesome.
Okay.
COLA. It's the only other thing we haven't talked about. I know that usually waits until closer to budget adoption time. You'll have some, it looks like, monies left over in contingency to consider that. And as she does every year, Melissa will have a sheet of, here's if you want to give a COLA, here's what a 0.5% would be, here's what a 1%, and they give you some.
So it's at the board's pleasure to determine whether or not we want to prioritize COLA over wage study.
Correct.
What you're
Yes.
saying, it's up to us.
Intentionally, you have a large contingency to consider some of these things, although discussion's been, this is the first zero base, right? We're stepping a little bit into the unknown here. So that part of why you have a large contingency is because of that. But you're also setting on a nice fund balance right now. So you've always got that available to you as you've taken full advantage of the last 10 years. But if the zero base is truly balanced and we stick to that going forward, then that fund balance is there, but really should be more one-time things, right? The mentality shouldn't be dipping into fund balance for recurring ongoing expenses.
This is going back a couple items, but you jogged my memory with that talk of fund balance, and we decided that 10% is a good marker for benefit increases. Budget 10%. Well, our history has been some much smaller than that, if 2 or 3%. We're not sure if this year is an anomaly. If next year we might see something smaller than 10%, 5, 6, or if it's just gonna continue to just climb like this, we don't know. But if we continue to budget 10% and then we have smaller increases, we should designate that money in a fund for healthcare. So that when you do have these years where, when all of a sudden it jumps up, you've got a little reserve that's dedicated to healthcare, just a thought.
You know, we kind of do that now, in a way, right? Because when you think about it, when every payroll hits, that the employer expenses hit and we budget for those. So we don't know what the HRA cost is gonna be, but we budget a certain amount and every payroll, that HRA piece hits, that medical piece hits, the dental vision piece hits, the prescription piece hits, and those are budgeted. And we build that up in the insurance fund, and that's what we pay our premiums and our HRA costs out of. So in a way,
Already do.
there is a little bit of buildup, but if it's a bad year, which we've had to feed that fund, we, you know, it can be a bad year and go the other way. But we kind of do that with the savings.
It just hasn't so much been in our favor last year due to the prescription, so
Exactly.
any buildup, but I also think the HRA is coming pretty close to the 500,000-600,000 that we budgeted. Those usually come in at that, if not a little bit more, but the prescriptions have eaten up
Good chunk of them.
any amount that we had in there.
So it should be a topic of discussion at our work session about whether we prioritize COLA versus wage study.
Yeah, we're getting to
Implementation,
that point. We
that-
need that direction in the final budget drafts. Yeah, we're coming up on.
We also have a roller coaster of MERS.
Oh, boy. Yeah. Yes.
Just that. At least they had a good year last year. It was a nice swing.
Wait for a couple more. These ones.
Are there, do departments, are you able to log in to I know you probably, treasurer's office, can log in and pull statements and actuarials through online. Would there be any benefit? Would anyone want a copy of the actuarial, department heads and electeds when it comes out from MERS to show what the year looked like, what each of our pensions are funded at? And
It's just gonna,
we just got one, yep, a couple weeks ago. Yep, and they don't send them to us anymore. They just send us an email to say they're ready. So I thought it was just maybe another webinar or something, and when I went and looked, it was.
Why don't we put it on the
Weeks.
next finance agenda and we'll walk through,
Just walk
we'll walk through it with it, and then that way you'll always be able to, it'll always be out there in agenda land.
And again, information and transparency.
I think in the past, they presented to us as well.
Okay,
Yeah, we can get them here.
I think. it
Yes.
should be. Yeah,
wanted an email to department heads and,
Yeah.
okay,
I'd like that.
I can do that and you'll have it even probably for the agendas.
Sounds like we ready to move on from the
Yes,
budget
sir.
draft number 2. Now we'll get to invoice list discussion. The first list is July 12th.
Everyone's taking a potty break.
The one thing I saw in here was the state of Michigan. It's not a great amount. It's $8,848 for qualified forest program fees from treasurer's office. I happen to know something a little bit about that because I own 80 acres up in Clare County, and I went through the effort to have a forestry plan done on it and got it into the qualified forestry program. So what it does, the benefit, you still have other obligations. I've been working that forest physically for the last 8 years, but one of the benefits you get is, you don't have to pay the 18, homestead property tax. However, you don't get the full benefit. You keep 2% that's held back, and I think that's what this is in Isabella County. There's that 2% adds up to that 8,000, goes into the state to cover the operational costs for the program. But I was surprised to see that there's enough forestry assets in the county to, to have people entering their program into that. It's almost like set aside land for ag too.
Right, that's an idea. It's good.
I think that actually one was where somebody got overqualified for us and had to pay back.
Oh, had to pay back?
Oh,
I didn't know there was a penalty to it.
Oh,
I don't know.
maybe paying back a certain amount of certain, like the PA 116
I take it back.
payback
Sorry.
years.
You're right. I was thinking of that other one we did last week. And that's what that was. It was. Sorry.
Yeah, I think you
Okay.
can forfeit if there's no
Right.
penalty, but
Right.
another nice thing is if I sell the property to somebody else, they can automatically incur that benefit and continue on with it as long as they meet the requirements of the. Any other questions on any of the bills listed here? Any background bills? Hearing none, we'll move on then to the July 19th.
You see, I know you usually bring up McBride Quality Care,
43,000.
then on the other page, you got 25,000.
It's a chunk of money to care for the young people of the county.
$78,000 a month.
One is our monthly contract.
Yeah.
And one is,
Direct care,
could be 2 youth, 3 youth, 1 youth.
we don't know.
Any questions on that list? The July 26th list. Be nice if we can get into a nice calm period. We wouldn't need to have as much legal counsel on issues, but
We just take a moment,
Take a
maybe
moment.
ask for that.
I know I do.
Okay.
Put it out in the universe.
Yeah, it's just put.
Please, Lord, just a breath of, just take a breath, yeah.
any questions on the July 26th list?
Nope, no, sir.
All right. We'll close the discussion on the invoice list. And we'll move to announcements. Are there any announcements?
I just want to remind everybody to get out and vote. You can vote right now, right down the hall here. Or if you live in the city of Mount Pleasant or Union Township, you can vote at Route Hall on CMU campus between the hours of 8 a.m. and 4 p.m., which I did that yesterday. It was really quick and convenient. So,
The only announcement I would make is I have a very good friend at church who happens to be a Democrat, but she's still a good friend.
Gotta love it volunteer.
Anyhow, she came up to me
You do know we're recording.
and she told me, she said, Jerry, when do you have time to solicit donations for veterans funds?
Oh.
And I said, I did not solicit any donations. He said, when the telephone call came in, it was a call from Jerry Jelazinski, because she's got my numbers, because I do other things with her. Anyhow, she said she answered it and it was in my voice. So I'm thinking that AI is getting to a point that it's scary. And I read on the internet too, that sometimes they're putting out messages from politicians misrepresenting their stands on things using their own voice. But all I want to say is, and I'm going to repeat this at the meeting, is that I have never given anybody permission to use my personality in any way to solicit donations, and I never would. And I think everybody needs to be cautious when these things do come in. I did talk to the sheriff about it. He said he's aware that you can hack into people's cell phone, telephone lists and get those numbers. But he said apparently it'd be a little bit of sophistication to do a general call out, but my daughter's disagree. She says, no, there are apps that can be used to do just that. So I don't know.
Well, and there's obviously a lot of footage of you guys out there talking, right?
Yeah.
It's not hard to get your voices and
Replicate.
it only could go to good, huh?
So the only one that I'm thinking about is Jerry's kids, Kathy, Jonathan and Jason.
You went there. You could have, you did go there.
Any other announcements? We'll do a call to the public then. Thank you all for coming. I do appreciate this. We'll adjourn this meeting then at 1:14.
Good
Good
job.
job. Well done today.
I'll cover it today.
Just see it. I'm gonna be